also see questions coming in. Where would you recommend I look?
Just kind of pull up the Facebook video in a window off in the corner, or on your phone or something.
Is it typically the most active one is Facebook?
Yeah, typically.
Okay.
That's right.
Starting the stream soon.
You ready?
I'm ready.
I think
we're live.
I switched live. Yeah, I switched to the app accidentally there. Like I touched a button on my phone. Well, we might as well just jump in. Welcome everybody to another edition of Sessionwire Live on Wednesday, September 29th. Today I'm joined by Ross Gillard. He's our business dev genius, and besides doing that, he's also steeped in a technical background. Spent a lot of time working as an audio engineer for a number of reputable companies that we'll get into. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. So without further ado.
Thanks for having me. That's hopefully I live up to these big words you've got there.
Oh man, well it's funny. The more I talk to people that we work with, the more I realize how entrenched everybody has been in the audio industry for a number of years, and the connections that everybody has, yourself included, is just like there aren't many people that we don't know collectively.
It's amazing. It's amazing how small the whole industry is. You go to like one of those trade shows, the big ones, NAM or NAB, and at first it's just like incredibly overwhelming. You're like, oh my God, there's like just thousands and thousands of people here. And then once everyone kind of gets into their camps and you're like, okay, there's actually only a few microphone makers, there's actually only a few plug-in makers, and yeah, it's really quite small, and it's like pretty easy to wrap your head around. I mean, obviously, their music is so broad, and there are millions of people that work in it. But then there's like that other space of people who are making music, but then they're also working in the tool building and all that side. So yeah, it's like it's incredible how tight it is. Like, every time we get on a call with, one of our colleagues, there's, oh, you know this person? Oh, yeah. I used to do this with them. And the stories go on, and it's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really neat. Yourself, you've kind of worked in all aspects of the audio industry, say audio instead of music, because, some of your work with Greyson and with Here's 360, it goes a lot deeper than just music.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, I grew up playing the guitar, and I think it was around like grade 7 or something like that. The drama class got like a soundboard, and then I was like, immediately saw that, and I was like super excited by it. And I think I was like literally the only person in the classroom that was excited by it. And throughout the years going into high school, like, there's a really small town, so it was kind of the same building for all this stuff. Was kind of called in to be the person that could operate it, and I got a multi-track recorder, like a Zoom multi-track hard disk recorder with like a IDE drive inside of it. That it was like a 12-track. It was amazing. I still would use it today, I think, if I had it, if the drive on it didn't die. But
right,
that I would like make my own demos there, and I had no idea about anything to do with audio production. And I was working for WestJet at the time, loading bags into airplanes, and my whole family's a military family, so they were like, it seemed like the logical progression was like, well, why don't you just go load bags for the military? And I didn't really want to do that, so I saw an ad on Much Music that was like, do you want to make music? And do you want to do sound design? Do you like video games? I was like, I love all these things. And so I applied for that, and I had applied for the Air Force, and mail kind of comes a little less frequently out in the countryside, and I actually got the letter of acceptance to both the same day. So it was like, do I want to go into the Air Force, or do I want to go to Toronto and go into film school? So 2005 went to film school, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because once I went there with the idea to make music and to learn how to make my own music better, and it wasn't ever about working on music for other people, or certainly wasn't about audio in a broad context. It was really just like, I just want to make music, and I want to figure out how to do it myself, because I grew up in the countryside and there was no one to make music with. And
right,
and that was like, I felt this like kind of do it myself isolationism kind of is something I had embraced, and I really began to love just like making everything myself in many ways. But long story short, it took me a very long time to actually start working on music in a paid way. Like, I had done literally everything under the sun to just finally get a job where I was working on music directly, and
Right.
and like I don't want to say even close to 10 years of from audio school, and even then it was pretty short-lived, because everyone was like, oh, this guy's a really good sound designer, let's put him on that instead of having him write music demos, because he's terrible at making pop songs or something like that, when other people were exceptional at it. So
right.
yeah, there's a million different ways to work in audio and to work in music, and I regret none of the little detours, and I'm actually, in my short brush with doing the music side of it, I realized that that's actually not the part that I was most excited with. Was writing music for myself is one thing, and I love doing that. And I'm always sending you random tracks that I've done, like, hey man, you work on drums for this. But yeah, it's really, it's all the other peripheral stuff that I find myself really excited by now with it. So
Yeah, well, I mean, it shows too. I mean, so you went to film school, and then after that, where did you end up immediately?
well, I started, I wanted to be in a band, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna like go and find this band to be in that I, would be my resting place to make my mark on the world. And I started, I jammed with a bunch of people, but I was really, I had spent so much time making music myself and not with others that I wasn't really great in like let's all get in a garage and just work this out. I'd find myself like looking at people's hands, trying to figure out what they're playing and like mimicking their chords and stuff like that. So I kind of found myself in the live mixer, because I found I liked the boards and I liked all that stuff, and I had seen enough shows where it felt like the band was great, but whatever the outcome through the speakers was not reflecting what they were doing on stage in a way, or like not capturing that in a way that I thought would be the way it should be. So I ended up doing live sound for an artist named Slim Twig, who ended up being quite big. I think he got signed to DFA Records at one point and is now called Badge Epic. Max Turnbull is an incredible artist, and so I went out on the road with them, and as you are with the live sound reinforcement person, they kind of saddle you up with some tour management as well. So
Yep.
I became a tour manager and went out with the Hidden Cameras, it was an arts and crafts band, and kind of just did a lot of like pickup jobs around the city for live sound. But then also there was a lot of film work being done, and at that point no one was going to give me the keys to their film in a post sense. It was more like, can you show up with a boom pole and work on my film, like help me record it? And yes was the answer, and to those, and yes has always been the answer, I think, for me in most audio circumstances. But I had a teacher, and I don't remember which one it is now, but they were basically like, the smartest thing you can do is invest in your own kit, because you're never going to make a dollar if you have to go and rent it all.
Right.
And so I bought a field mixer and a boom pole and a decent little shotgun, like nothing crazy. Like I want to say like maybe I spent $2,500 in total for the sum of all of this. And, that was like a few years ago now, so it's probably like triple now with inflation. But
Yeah.
that really paid off, because I made more money from holding a boom pole than I did from the stuff I was doing in music with other bands. And it's not to slight those bands and their success or anything. It's just the reality of budgets around the indie music scene and stuff like that. And it's harder to get a lot of those shows. Summers in Canada, you can rely on lots of touring, but then the freeze comes in October, and a lot of the cross-country touring stuff kind of dries right up. So
Right.
yeah, I really kind of was all over the place in the types of sound roles that I was doing, and every one of them became kind of like cyclical in the benefit to the other side of the spectrum. Like working, once I finally got to post, the experience of location audio was pretty helpful, and being able to go on set and help, just being able to understand like what they're up against, and not just coming at it from like, oh, you guys, you didn't mic this properly, and there's like so much chaos that happens on a live set. The compromises are being made every 2 seconds, and
Right.
you got to learn how to roll with that. And yeah, and that happens in post, it happens on location, it happens in a band, it happens in a recording studio, you name it. So
Yeah, being quick on your feet is it's an important skill to have,
yeah.
I think, in what we do. So after, touring and, post-production and working on film sets, when did you end up at Greyson?
Greyson, I mean, if I can be long-winded here, it's funny. I was working at a cafe in Toronto, like a few steps from my house. It was pretty amazing. You'd like wake up it's a cafe, so it starts early, but I would kind of just roll out of bed from whatever gig I was on the night before and go and put in 6 hours there. And I worked there for quite a while juggling a bunch of other things. And then I started to get, I would say, somewhat depressed from not having my dreams kind of becoming realized of wanting to do this. I knew I had some skill and I had something to offer the audio world, but I was spending more time in this kind of cafe environment. And so this guy that came in every single day, his name's Liam, and just bless this guy's soul, because he changed the direction of my life in many ways. And he would come in every day, and usually right before close, but he would always just tip really well, so it was amazing. Because to see Liam would be like, yeah, there's like, $5 tip or something like that on like a $2 coffee or something. So,
Right.
but I had worked there for so many years that at one day he kind of came in and he was like, and I was sort of like not as enthusiastic to see him, maybe because it was like closing time, and I'm like, I just want to get out of here type thing. And he's like, man, like, what's your deal? Like, what are you so glum? And I was like, well, I just want to do this sound thing. I'm like, I feel like I'm pretty good at it, and I don't understand why I'm not able to like find some outlet to really chew on. And he was like, well, my best friend Dave owns this amazing facility that was like a fun house of music composition. I had never even heard of anything like this. Like, there's no like Yellow Pages section for like music studios, and
Yeah.
there was, but this is a gray area of the internet and Yellow Pages and Wikipedia for centralized information. So,
Right.
but I had never thought that like an advertising agency for music specifically would exist. And I was also like a post-punk person, and so like the idea that like working in ads with making jingles is like far away from my the respect levels then or something like that. But
Right. Yeah.
anyways, he was like, well, do you have a demo reel? And maybe I can put it in front of him. And I literally whipped it out, like I had it there on the spot, and I was just like, I had already CD with my little makeshift sleeve, and I gave it to him, and he said, well, you know what, I'll put it in front of him, and I can't do anything else for you, but if it's good, it's going to be good. And yeah, he followed through. He gave it to them, and I bugged him. I had his cell phone number, and I asked him like, hey, can I get a number for this place, because I want to follow up. And I was really eager to change my situation. So I reached out. They ended up asking me in for an interview, and I totally bluffed. I totally they were like, we're not really looking for somebody right now, but we've got a few other candidates, and we'll call you back. And I was sort of like, yeah, I've reached out to everywhere in the city. You guys are my first choice, and I really want to work here, but like I'm on hiatus from this other, in this
Okay.
circumstance to try and
Yeah.
figure out my life. And I bluffed, and they bit. They were like, okay, you start on Monday. And maybe my route would have been a little different had I just let them kind of come back to me, but I don't think so. But anyways, I started in the dubbing room at that point, and I had some sound design skill, because I've always loved sound design. It's like my favorite jam. I realized, to go back onto all these other things that I thought I was going to be super into, but sound design was one that just like, it's endlessly inspiring for me. But
Right.
so I was helping out their sound designer and the dubbing room, which at that point was still realistically a dubbing room, which is like, there are tapes that are being sent out to the client and masters that are being sent over to the broadcaster that are going to be, that's how this commercial or this television episode is going to be played over CBC or something like that, is this actual master tape. And for anyone who's been around longer than me, this is going to be like, duh, yeah, that's how it always went. But in the time that I was there, I watched that, and I got to be a part of shaping that whole transition to just the internet of everything in that regard. So I was there for 10 years and went from dubbing to your.
I heard that. Yeah.
But
The
the
gremlin is back.
we won't say which brand audio interface because we love them all. But
I love these guys too, but we're gonna have a serious talk.
yeah. The yeah, I went from like dubbing to sound designer's assistant to kind of just carving out my own role of sound design projects that, where I could just run them myself, and to writing as well, and to studio manager because I loved all the tech stuff, and I started to get into the weeds of how to make all the machines more efficient there. And yeah, it's kind of a blur because I was there for 10 years, but it flew by, and to the point where I had started up a new shop with them down in Los Angeles, specializing in virtual reality production and 360 video capture, and that was kind of stemmed from being awarded the sesquicentennial, which is a weird word for 150 years old, for when Canada's 150th birthday. There were sort of these bids going out across the country for people to produce a film on behalf of Canada. And I had done a bunch of sound design work earlier with the director, and that all kind of cyclical came back to where they were like, I really like working with this person, and I want him to be on this project. And it was an incredible opportunity to travel the entire country. I didn't get to do a lot of the traveling. I was on the post team at that point, but it was, finding the location recordists to go and help with this, and really just building out the whole audio pipeline of how are we going to make this 360 dome film work that travels across the country. It's got to be in Vancouver, it's got to be in Calgary, it's got to be in Toronto, and it's like a 1.5 week process where this is moving there, and we need to recreate this experience over and over. And the content of the film itself was all captured with red cameras on, kind of duct taped to a cheese plate, which, if you're not familiar, is just like a piece of steel with a bunch of holes drilled through it that film people use to mount things to their rigging. And so they had this camera rig that it was 3 red cams with these super wide angle lenses to capture this dome film. So it was not truly 360, but the same problems existed there that would in VR. And at that time, there was no microphones to capture that stuff. And so there was a couple, but really not field grade stuff.
Right.
We had microphone cables freezing in the Arctic that would snap in half because the cable was like what you would see on a wireless lav mic, like super thin, and it was trying to pass a bunch of like way more conductors than that. And so there's like RF interference and all this weird stuff. So it was a real crash course in like what is coming and where we're at right now. We're like Atmos is now in Apple Music, and like that. Wow. These are the formats that we're just starting to see adopting.
Well, so. we're gonna get to that too. I mean, there are some people watching here. Chris Nunn says that's what I want to do. I'm assuming that he's talking about basically your entire career path, because it sounds exciting.
Yeah, which part, Chris? I'm curious because I'm really quite passionate about all of them, and I wouldn't caution anyone away from any of them. Like even right down to the dubbing thing. Like depending on where someone's at in their career, like that's the way to really get a pulse on the client relations side of it, and just the whole operation from the executive producer communicating with the executive engineers, and there's so many conversations that go into when you get into like audio production with stakeholders where people are really putting like $600 an hour down for a session. There's so much more to it than just like mixing. Mm-hmm. It's a whole universe of responsibilities and stuff like that go along with that. So the dubbing place was kind of my like safe zone away from it all and away from the stress, but I still got to see it all and kind of absorb and learn from it. So,
well, that's great, Chris. If you're still watching, feel free to comment. Which part of it, and maybe we can elaborate maybe expand on it a little bit. Eric Torres just made a comment here and says he's had Sessionwire for 3 months now and he can't get the mic on his end to work. The input mic is set to the device. The other party can't hear me, so I'm having to use a cell phone for communication. That's not good.
No, it isn't good.
I haven't given up on the issue yet. Maybe you can shed some light. The Sessionwire audio set for the input. The Sessionwire plug-in, same as the output. Right. So, Eric, depending on your setup, we'll just kind of dive into this really quick, and then we'll come right back out and pick up where we left off because
No, this sounds urgent. Let's get this figured out.
Yeah, we'll just kind of touch on it briefly. So, Eric, the way that we are recommending, and this goes for everybody out there, the way that we recommend working is if you're not using a Pro Tools HDX system and you have a webcam and any kind of audio interface, doesn't matter what it is, you set the talkback microphone of Sessionwire to your webcam microphone. You set the talkback speaker to your interface or your built-in output. You set it up exactly like you would any video communication software. Your talkback is working. You don't have to use the plugins for it. In fact, we recommend not using them unless you have to. And that's the easiest way to get up and running quickly. And then you can expand on your routing from there. So for anybody watching, that's how you set up the talkback stream. And then it's as easy as dropping the send plugin on your master fader. Sessionwire defaults to see that as the input of the HQ audio stream, and it defaults to your system out for the output of the HQ audio stream. So you can start streaming audio back and forth immediately without having to put more than one plugin in your session. So, Eric, I sent you the email address. Shoot me an email at that address, and we'll set up a time, and we'll get you through what's going on there.
Mm-hmm. Also, hot tip: T for talkback is a hotkey to turn your talkback on and off.
A little known fact: we don't broadly advertise that.
Yeah.
Just in case. There. Absolutely. And anybody watching, you'll notice these fancy meters right here.
Very
we have
nice.
New meters in the app. We used to have meters in the old version of the app. They're back now, and they will be released very imminently. So keep an eye out for that. You'll be notified in the app about the update. Brad Lang says exactly, try everything. So find that niche. That's what he says.
Yeah, you have no idea. You have no idea what. Well, some people have a really clear idea. The one thing I mean, I feel lucky. I know a lot of friends that even still aren't quite sure what they want to do, but I was fairly certain from quite a young age that I was like, it's in this realm, it's in this music and sound realm, and I just drove at that and tried to live as cheap as possible until I could grow out of that, you know. But yeah. I saw a lot of people in school that were had a lot of responsibilities already in their life, and I don't want to be down on the industry, but I think some of them got swallowed up in that right away. Like, you kind of have to keep at it for a while.
There goes my microphone again.
Yeah, kind of dovetails into, you know, what came up last time in the last stream with Colin when talking about finding collaborators and stuff like that. Like, you really just gotta, I think, keep grinding at it, and the perseverance pays off eventually. I don't really know many people in the history of music that have been forgotten about if they're doing something great, you know.
Well, it's exactly like you said. You just have to keep at it, and having the time, especially if you're in school, and this is what I tell anybody that wants to go to music school. I went to music school at McEwen University here in the city, and while you're at school, you have to be doing all kinds of other things away from school. You have to be networking with people away from school. You have to be playing with people away from school, composing, working with people outside of that bubble while you're there, not after, because by the time you graduate, if you haven't been doing that already, it's too late.
Oh yeah, you got to be starting. You got to live it all the time.
Chris has replied here. He says he has a 360 camera, the Zoom 360 mic, but no work to do with it. People don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a real. It's very early. So Chris, I hope you get more out of this. The later parts of the stream, we're kind of going to get into some of the tools that I've used to do some of the work that I've been doing. But yeah, I think it's a hard go out there for the 360 video medium. Like it's very specific in a lot of ways. Like the challenges I can see, and I'm guessing not a lot of this has changed at this point, is there's not a lot of places to deliver content. So, and not in a way that you can get a return on your investment back. So I think the medium itself has massive promise, and we haven't even really seen that area yet. That production that I had done with the red cams and all that stuff, like that couldn't have happened without the Canadian government sort of taking a chance on it. And VR was the hot topic that year. But I had done this other project that I love it. I still love it, and it was done. It was sort of the upgraded version of the learnings from that red camera sesquicentennial project, and it was with this artist from Berlin named Alice Phoebe Liu, who's like an incredible artist and street performer, and she just had this amazing story of like schlepping her amp down the stairs every day and going to busk on the streets and selling more records busking than most people could try to move off the shelf at your local favorite record store. And she was totally independent, and she still is in so many ways, and she's become like a much bigger artist. I think she was nominated for a Grammy last year, or for an Oscar, sorry, for the Hedy Lamarr Bombshell, that movie, whenever year that came out. There's all a bit of a blur since the pandemic hit. But
No doubt.
anyways, the cost for that production was so high that, and our avenues for delivery were Facebook, YouTube. And so ad revenue itself is not going to pay for that, especially on such a niche thing. Sorry, you looked like you had a thought there, Brendan.
I'm just reading the comments here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that's it. And so like I really want to see a platform like Apple TV, for example, step up and offer the 360 video native in those platforms, because your other alternative avenue is to go and build a game engine around your video and try and get it deployed that way. And there's huge advantages to doing something like that. The interactivity scale goes up tenfold when you can move around and you've got 6 degrees of freedom versus an on-rails 360 video that's playing at you. But I love 360 video still. I think it's got a real power to just kind of put you in a place and you're right there. And with Alice, like I just wanted to capture her busking on the street, because she would just there'd be hundreds of people that would all of a sudden just stop and watch her and just be like, they're on their way to work and they're like, that's it. I'm just going to stop and sit down here on the street and watch this artist blow my mind. And to be able to see that and not just have the camera fixed on her, but to capture the whole, I don't know, magic of what she was doing was key. And I don't think that, we did a 2D film in parallel, and I don't think it doesn't capture the same thing. So I can't wait. I've been holding on to it. I don't want to just put it out on YouTube. I maybe I'm weird and selfish or something, but we shot it in 8K, and even then I can't get that over on YouTube correctly. So I want to release it when the format's right, and it's coming. So stay interested.
Well, and something you said earlier kind of ties into something that Chris just mentioned. He mentioned he's got training in sound design from Full Sail. Yeah. Awesome. Shout out to Full Sail. We should probably give them a little call.
Yeah.
Sessionwire.
It's come up a few times.
Yeah. He says he's looking at audio implementation for video games as well.
Yeah. Fmod and Wise. If I could go back, it's not like I can't learn these things right now. I do have a pretty good understanding of them, but knowing Fmod and Wise is the gateway to transitioning your audio production expertise into the gaming world. And if you're not familiar with those tools, they kind of create scripts that go along with the audio asset that you create. So a car engine, for example, when the accelerator is pressed down, what happens to the audio file? And so you kind of create these static files, like linear audio files that have a beginning and an end, and you give the parameters of how it's going to loop, what's going to happen when this modification happens, and those sort of scripting parameters right now are all more or less handed by the game developers, and that's fine. But like, I have a feeling, like, I've heard game audio my whole life. I love gaming, and some of them do an exceptional job. I think Dice is, does like Battlefield and stuff like that. That has an incredible sound team, and the level of detail that they go through to capture all the rifles and do all this stuff is just it's so impressive. But there are a lot of applications being developed in games and mobile games and ways to get into that. And I think that if you can wrap your head around how to provide a 3D engine expert, or like a Unity or an Unreal editor, sort of developer, with the assets, and you are giving them also the code that goes along with it, they can just hang those on the hooks in the game, and that's it, right? Like, that's the real trick there. And if you're just an audio person that doesn't understand those things, you still have a role in those places, but you might not be as valuable as the person that knows both. So I think if for anyone that's sort of younger in their career, that's a really solid move, is to wrap your head around that, and really it's not that difficult, and it's actually quite fun to think about. One of my favorite tools is called Sound Particles. It's an application. You can download it for free and just do the educational trial, and you could take in a harp pluck, and you could put it in there, and you could say, propagate this throughout this 3D space, and do it 1,000 times, and throw a Doppler on it, and have it explode into 1,000 more pieces when it hits the wall. And that's all coming from one static audio sample, and you just hit run, and it just does it. And it's like, often like, wow, that's I wish that existed 10 years ago when I was trying to make bubbles on a screen, where I had to like go and like drag and drop all these different bubbles, pitch shift one, and
man,
yeah,
what a load of work. Brad Lang says, how about Roku? Build own channel.
Yeah, I don't know much about the developer side of developing for Roku. I've never actually had any client ask for it, but I got a lot of friends who that's what their main entertainment is, kind of coming through a Roku system in that regard. So yeah, the thing I really like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know anything about Roku, like I was saying, but Apple's remote has some somewhat sophisticated controls in the gyro inside of it, and that's why I think it should be a 360 and VR capable platform. It's got everything it needs to be able to steer the mix and stuff like that. So if Roku's got a similar device, it'd be great. And even if it didn't, just the left, right, and buttons should be enough to move the scene around and get some sort of value out of a 360 experience like that. But yeah, I'll have to look into it more.
Yeah, well, we're gonna talk a little bit. Well, not a little bit, a lot about how to build a 3D experience in Pro Tools right away, which I'm really excited about, because it's kind of new to me, and I just updated to Pro Tools Ultimate, and now can do all these, all this crazy routing with all kinds of channels, and it's gonna be exciting to dive into it.
Let's make that CPU sweat.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody commented something. I think they just pulled it. It just disappeared. It's too bad. I thought it looked interesting. Robin LeBeau says, nice meters.
Nice meters indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would know, Robin.
Yeah, it's amazing. Meters they're one of those things that you take for granted until you don't have them. Yeah. But like, anytime you're like troubleshooting anything, like just being able to look over and see like, oh yeah, I'm getting there. It's actually on your fault. It's your problem now that you're not hearing it. I know I'm getting there.
Exactly. So Eric Torres from the earlier comment, it might not be your fault.
It might not. Yeah. Who are you connecting to? What's their setup? Because that's the voodoo sometimes.
Exactly. I mean, I would say at least 60% of the time that's the issue when I connect with people to help them out. Oh, I can't. My audio's not making it across. Well, it is, but what's the other person doing?
Yeah.
Where is it going?
Can we talk about the diagnostics? Can you show that?
I think so. Robin, in the comment section.
Give us a thumbs up if we're
Give us
or thumbs down if we're offside.
Yeah, just a quick one. We'll pause for 10 seconds while the video catches up here.
I have a story I can meander on for a bit.
Well, and I was just gonna briefly introduce Robin for people watching. So Robin is in the comment section. He is the founder and CTO of Sessionwire, and what we are in, this is his baby, and it has been for a number of years. And it's exciting times.
Hats off to you, Robin. It's amazing what's happened in a very short order. I mean, it's amazing what's happened over the years too, but like really I'm continually just blown away by this whole team and how much has been accomplished in just this year alone. So
yeah, no kidding. And our lead developer John, just
shout
killing
out to
it.
John.
Yeah. He probably won't ever watch one of these, but that's okay. I asked him if he wanted to be on one, and he said no. So I'll work on him some more. Robin hasn't answered the question. He has, however, said howdy and you rock, guys. So he's either ignoring the question or it's okay.
I think we can take that as a blessing.
I'm gonna say it's okay
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so.
Can you explain it though? Because I some of these terms I'm not necessarily the expert on. So maybe we'll have to have Robin back to explain those if you don't want to do that. But
no, he I'm sure he would love to at some point. So basically, the gist of it is we've expanded the network diagnostics window for the next version, so you can see that obviously the network is connected, your connection strength, whether you're connected to the server, which is kind of a misnomer because right now Ross and I are connected, but we're not going through a server. It's a peer-to-peer connection, and it's very secure. So there's a server that does things for us in terms of the app, but it's not to do with the connection. The data channel, streaming video, and the file transfer system, and soon to come the chat feature. Next down, we have the high-quality audio round-trip time. Right now, between Ross and I, the round-trip time is 48 milliseconds, or 43 milliseconds, sorry. But that is the network round-trip time. That's not the audio complete round-trip time.
okay.
So, because the computer takes some time to do some things, and buffer sizes kind of enter into it. So it is relatively low. Low.
Do you know off the top of your head the amount of time that it is from Toronto to Edmonton, for example, at the speed of light? I don't.
Off the top of my head.
From Edmonton, and someone's probably gonna give me hell if I get this wrong, but I'm fairly certain from Toronto to Los Angeles is 10 milliseconds of light speed. So that's our baseline, right? So if we're at 43 on the network side, I feel like that's something that we should give ourselves a little pat on the back.
Oh,
I didn't do
sure.
any of this, but I'll happily do it on behalf of the dev guys, because that's really, it's important. I can barely get my system down to 64 milliseconds. I can start a session that way and I work that way and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And then I get like 5 song tracks in and I'm like, okay, it's time to bump this up.
It is very low. And disclaimer, I wish I could put a big banner. Disclaimer, we do not promote real-time live jamming over the internet ever. That's not what Sessionwire was designed and built for. We are not going to combat the latency. However, I have had people say that they have been able to jam with Sessionwire, but they're within a few miles of each other. So that if that round trip time is low enough and your buffer size is low enough and your computer is fast enough,
if you're working on shoegaze, like there's some genres out there that I think you could do it with. But
totally.
Some
ambient spa type music.
Exactly.
It's quite something. Robin is making spaghetti, so that's why he's not answering.
Nice.
continuing down the list here, we've got the talkback round trip time, so it's very similar to the HQ audio round trip time, and the video packet loss and video jitter. So the packet loss essentially has to do with largely how strong your or how consistent your connection is. So an Ethernet connection is not going to experience much packet loss, but Wi-Fi might because of interference due to walls or your microwave or cables in your wall. So the packet loss, if it gets too high, it can cause audio artifacts and video issues. Ross and I right now, we're on very solid connections. Ross has been bragging about gigabit internet for the last 3 months, and I think I maybe get 70 down and 30 up. So
1,500 down, 1,500 up here, but it's, man,
very
I don't
jealous.
want to tell you what kind of trouble I've had to go through and how many different ISPs I've had to try out to get to where I am. But if you're in my postal code, get Bell. That's the last time I'll ever promote Bell or any of them, because they're all.
Yeah. We might end up censored by the YouTube ghosts anyways. It's another just side note, bandwidth is not an issue with Sessionwire. We ran Sessionwire at 3 megabytes per second upload and download speeds at NAM, but it was connected by Ethernet, and that keeps the packet loss down and the latency as well.
Everything he said, and I stand by all that, but I just want to celebrate something that, like, the between the lines here for a second, because you the other week you were touring, you were over in PEI, and we had this idea because you were about to catch a flight, and we had just had a new release, and it was like, well, what would happen if we tried Sessionware out on a flight? And you were flying with, we'll say, WestJet, I'm going to guess. I used to load bags for them, so I'm happy to. I was an owner at one point. No.
Maybe that'll offset it. They won't put me on the no-fly list anymore.
Yeah, no, but we connected, and it worked, and that's Wi-Fi, and that's the worst Wi-Fi anyone has ever experienced. In-flight Wi-Fi is untenable, and we connected and shared music back and forth, and there was a crazy delay. Not even a crazy delay. It was like a quarter beat or something like that. So obviously, like, we don't promote jamming, but, like, I don't know, try and break it and tell us cool stories and tag us in it, and like yeah, I want to know. I want to know what people are trying to do with it out there, and we obviously just have to be very careful that people don't have the wrong idea. Yeah. So it's just it's quite a misconception. At least people come to us and say, I tried to use Sessionwire to jam with my friend. I live in New York and he's in Japan. Well, you go tell it to Einstein. That's not our fault.
Yeah, it's just physics, right? Like, light unimpeded travels in a straight line. It still takes it 20 milliseconds to get there.
Yeah.
Then it's got to go through cables, and it's not a straight line, and et cetera. There are a couple articles on our support site about that in particular, if you really want to dig into it. But okay, I feel like we need to get into the cool stuff here. Yeah. Just before that, the tools that you're using to do all of this are from Here 360. Yeah,
I think so. All of them. Yeah.
Just talk about maybe just shortly a little bit about your time there and the gear that you used to capture a couple of the shows that you did, because that little microphone is like.
Okay, bear with me one second. I got the microphone right here.
Oh, no way. Okay. All right.
So they're probably gonna kill me for this, because this is not the sexy version that the public can buy and all that stuff. This is like the first prototype, and I don't even know if they have it right now. So if you're watching, it's over here, and I love it and I cherish it, and it still works, and it's a 3D printed version of it, and this one has 3.5 millimeter headphone jack style connections off of it. So this is an omni binaural. Their new one is like so sexy. It's like Mogami, comes with like braided Mogami micro XLR, and it's way more secure, and I've taken this one through hell and back. And
it's called the 8-ball, if anybody's
the
8-ball.
Yeah, and cheeky name. Yeah, it's an omni-binaural microphone. So for our friend that was, dabbling in this stuff, I think he had said he had a Zoom one, and I don't. To be honest, I've been so busy with the Sessionwire passion at this point that I haven't really checked in on all of the new spatial microphones. But there's ambisonic microphones and there's binaural microphones, and binaural microphones tend to be more pleasing when it comes to musical content. Like if I have an ambisonic microphone and I look at a kick drum, there's some synthesis happening to creating what that is. Like if I had one capsule pointing at that kick drum and then I had the other capsules pointing in every which direction, I might be able to just like use that one capsule that was pointing at the kick drum and get a nice clean kick sound. The moment I move my head, it starts to get phasey, and there's some comb filtering algorithms that go into interpolating what happens between those capsules. And this is designed on the binaural principles. So it's basically like meant to mimic left ear, right ear. So I've got tape on this one that says 1, and there's tape covering this one, but this one says 2 underneath. And so that's left and right of my front perspective. And binaural microphones are the distance of your eardrums away from each other. And I believe that all of us as adults have the same distance from our inner ear apart from each other, more or less.
That
and
sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, the physical exterior changes. You got bigger jaws and all that stuff, but the principle of this is sort of like on the skull level of where your eardrums sit. And so you have 4 stereo perspectives here. And this was the workhorse for like most of the VR content that I was doing, 360 video and stuff like that. Like it's beautiful. I can't say what the capsules are inside of it, but they sound great, and it just worked. And it's so much more pleasing to work with audio in this format, because if I had a failed capsule, a cable got unplugged from the bottom or it snapped or whatever, I still had a bunch of stereo pairs left to work with that I could recover what I was doing. And with ambisonic, it's a lot of voodoo, to be honest. It's like you got to have like a degree in, I don't even know what, to kind of like once you get into like third order ambisonics and you're dealing with like these crazy track counts, it's a lot of the hardcore engineering stuff and not a lot of the feel stuff. And I really kind of try to keep things in the music world of like, I don't know, put the mic there, like see what it sounds like there. And I don't know, like I don't know what the outcome is until I hear it, and then I move it if it's not great, and I just kind of keep going. And there's a lot of the ambisonic world that's like, okay, now I need a decoder to hear this correctly, and I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I need to go and get it into Pro Tools before I can really objectively hear what the outcome is going to be like. Whereas this, I was able to take my field mixer and just kind of like create some mute groups and be like, boom, I want to hear the front perspective. Just mute the rest. Okay, that's 1 and 2. Sounds good. 3 and 4, pan them. That's the left side. Great. So that's what this is. The whole concept behind it was to be able to make a pole-mounted solution so that the camera could go on top. So you had a 360 rig, you got your lenses pointing every which way, and you could route the cables from the camera down through the body of this mic, and you could have the mics as close to the optics of the camera. So you didn't have this like microphones down here, cameras up here, detached sound from it. You really want to have everything kind of coupled together as close as possible. And so this design, those guys are brilliant. They nailed it. And yeah, I wish that these microphones were more commonly out there. But again, yeah, the VR thing, it's been a tricky one. So yeah, this on the hardware side, was kind of the foundation of a lot of things. And I have a video in this Pro Tools session that, we kind of use it as a room mic in that case. Cause like a lot of times you're blending stuff. It's still, maybe if we had like 20 of these, we could go and just place them everywhere and get a good amp sound off of it from, close proximity. But that's a lot of cabling and expense in that regard. So we kind of just popped it in the center of the room, which tends to be where the camera is. You want to have the camera in the center of the action, so every which way you look, you get something to kind of grab onto. So in the example that I'm showing you, it's really not the hero in that case. It's kind of the room mic that we're blending into the mix, which is just coming from right off the console, and it's with George Stroumboulopoulos, the host of the Hour. He has this thing in Toronto where he just gets like, I think it's actually a formal show and it might be like a podcast and stuff like that. And forgive my ignorance for not knowing more specifics about it, but invited us in to record and test it out. And Busty the Bass was there as the performer, and he does these things out of his basement, and they're kind of like a fun little hang, and so it's super vibey, and it's one of the best demos I think to this day to show the technology. So yeah,
We're gonna dive in right away. You showed me this earlier, and I have all of these thoughts now. Like I just want to mix my drums through 7.1.2 now, and
yeah,
like put them where they are in front of me and see what it sounds like. And but before we get into this, today we're going to give away 3 session passes during this broadcast. For anybody that's watching, session passes are the new way to purchase the artist features in Sessionwire. You don't have to buy a recurring subscription. The session pass lasts for 3 days. So you redeem a code, you get 3 session passes, and you can activate them whenever you need the features. You can be in an active call like we are right now and decide all of a sudden you need to record, activate your pass. You get all the features for 3 days. So we need to decide. It totally slipped my mind before this, but we need to decide how we're going to give this away. And I thought maybe like a skill testing question would be cool, but then what are we going to ask about? Are we going to ask about VR audio? Are we gonna? I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a thought when we connected earlier today, and I forgot what it was.
It'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Chris says the Zoom H3 VR is switchable between ambisonic, binaural, and stereo.
Beautiful. Now that's a workhorse. I love Zoom. I already said it. I won't name the audio manufacturer, but I will say that it's the same one that Brendan's using. But I have an extremely expensive MADI interface that doesn't work well for me specifically, and the model has already been replaced. But I am actually, in this instance right now, using a Zoom F8, a field recorder, as my main workhorse interface. And I'm a big advocate of Zoom just in general. I think they get people's hands on high-level tech for a real affordable way. And to get an 8-track field recorder from anybody else that I know of, you'd be out of pocket quite a bit. So big respect to Zoom for at least getting, some of their stuff is like, it's certainly like you can go higher. I know that, but really it punches well for its weight. So.
Yeah, I take a Q2N 4K out on shows and record them all the time and throw it up, hit record, sounds great, looks great, little rough and low light, but that's what you get for a sensor that's I mentioned at the beginning of the show, my first thing was that Zoom 12-track. I can't remember the model number now, but I also bought a Zoom H4. That was my first sort of handheld field recorder. It had terrible handling noise, but they ended up making, like, the generations that followed that are absolutely incredible. And I assume that's actually like the mic that Chris is mentioning. It's Chris, right? Yep, Chris Nunn.
Yeah. Is probably the evolution of that first H4. I think there was an H4n at one point, but anyways, the build quality on those has just gone through the roof. So yeah, I can't say enough about them. I'm a big fan.
Awesome. Well, I think I came up with the question for the session passes. For 3 session passes, we'll set you up with a code. You can get passes. And this, I think we'll just leave it open to the people that are watching. If more than one person does it, great. We'll set you up with codes. I think the question is going to be, what is the minimum channel count to listen to a Dolby Atmos mix?
Well, that's tricky.
Yeah, if you can name...
I don't even know if I know that.
Yeah, and I might have to research this one. It's off the top of my head.
Just shout any number. We'll give it to you.
There's 3 numbers. Yeah, I'm almost I'm positive I know what it is.
Yeah.
I should know what it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to do that, you can put it in the comment section. We'll keep an eye out. This is only going to happen during this live stream, so make sure you do that. You also have to go like our Instagram account, and you have to like our Facebook page. So,
All
Chris,
of you.
hit Wikipedia, Chris.
Yeah.
Do it. I'll get you some session passes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to make sure that my screen sharing is working. So for everybody watching, I'm not doing anything with regards to audio during this whole next demo part. Ross is going to be streaming his mix from his Pro Tools rig through Sessionwire to me, and I'm broadcasting it out to the internet. And headphones are highly recommended because this is really cool, and it is going to be binaural, and that really only works if you're wearing a decent pair of headphones.
Yeah, you might notice you might notice some of the things we're talking about, but some of it's pretty nuanced. This is trying to be natural. It's not trying to be this surreal panning solution that things are flying every which way around you, and it's good for that too. But the examples that I'm showing are it's taken from a live environment, so there's a lot of bleed between mics, and it's quite subtle, but it's natural, and yeah. So put some headphones on. I think you'd get a lot more out of it.
Awesome. For 3 sessions. So somebody just asked, what was the question again? So I'm just gonna
Trolled. You're getting trolled.
I'm gonna type it in the thing here, and it is what is the minimum?
Tell you, if you can answer Brendan that question for Brendan, you get a pass.
This is why I'm asking it. This is why it's the skill testing question. What is the minimum channel count needed for a Dolby Atmos mix? And this is the minimum channel count, because the ideal channel count for a Dolby Atmos mix is absolutely insanity.
1000.1.
Yeah, exactly. So it's 3 numbers, something dot something dot something. I'm going to put that something dot something dot something. And yeah, you have to do that, and you have to, this is why I'm typing too, like our Instagram account and Facebook page.
Yeah.
And after the stream is done, that's when it stops, and that's when I'm going to go check Instagram and in the comment section. So make sure you get out there.
First 3?
First three?
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying anybody that does it, but it has to be during the stream.
Yeah. Okay.
Lou Martinez guesses 5.1.4.
I feel like I know that name. Sorry.
There might be some friends in here.
5.1.4.
Okay.
He's giving the answer away to everyone else, though.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how we're supposed to do this without giving it away.
Well, we might have another question later, and we might just give out a bunch of passes, right? We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, the first one, you'll get a special congratulations, I guess. Yeah. So, yeah, that I'm, again, 99% sure that is false. That is not the answer.
I'm not going to fact check this, but I feel like it's pretty close, though.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close. We'll move on, and maybe some Dolby Atmos whiz will land in the comment section.
Yeah.
But I do distinctly recall talking with a couple of people who mix in Dolby Atmos, and that's not the answer. It's not the answer I'm looking for. Let's say that. We'll put it that way. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to share my screen, my entire screen, and I'm going to full screen Ross so we can check out his desktop. Apologies in advance. His desktop is a wide screen, so it is stretched out a little bit. If you have to zoom in, make your screen full screen, please do. Here we go. Switch to my screen, and I'm going to full screen this, and we should be good to go. So
you can see my screen. I'm going to minimize this chat here because I know what you look like.
Yeah.
Are you seeing me all right, though?
You could use the picture-in-picture function if you wanted.
Hey, that's a good idea. Look at that. Oh yeah, and then everyone can see you, and then you can. Great. This is a good idea. Good showcase of Sessionwire's fluid.
Hashtag picture in picture.
Yeah. So, I'm looking right now at a lot of tracks. It looks like it's, for anyone who's done a big mix, it's not really that big, but what you'll notice is there's an immense amount of channels on each one of these tracks. So if I go to the drum kit, for example, what I've got here is my 360 videos actually loaded up inside this plugin called Meridian, which is from Here 360, and this is sort of your somewhat of an object-based mixer. You've got these little nodes that represent channels. So this is an actual stereo. This starts as stereo. It's a stereo mix of the drum kit, probably directly off the console, if I remember correctly, of the drum group there. So I think for this, we've just kind of kept it simple and made these more stem-based mixing. And I think I encourage that in most cases, is get your sound in the way that you can monitor and that you can control, and then just start to look at how you're going to spatialize those after the fact. So if I go to the lead vocalist, for example, they're there. And this is a 360 video mapped in kind of a Cartesian way. I think that's the right term for that. But if you've ever seen the world map laid out in a rectangle versus a globe, you get this sort of stretching that's happening on the exterior of the edges of it all. So anything that's directly here on the side, you can see based on these little degrees on the side, is directly behind you in the 360 viewing context. So center is right down here, and elevation is not really at play in this. So the 8-ball that I was showing you earlier, and I don't have my camera feed up here, but is a horizontal. There's no elevation channels on that. So this is actually captured before a lot of the elevation stuff kind of was in the picture of Atmos, for example. But the same principles are applying here, and honestly, a lot of the same techniques can get you to where you want to be for an Atmos mix. I think I'll just not talk a bunch here and just actually start to play some of this. And what I'll do is actually, I should explain a little bit of what's going on here. Everything is more or less going out to the Here 360 Earth and Sky plugins. The Sky plugins represent the elevation channels, so they were clearly thinking about it at that point, and there's discrete pathways to go into that. That's probably maybe some of these things I'll just try and show, but for the most part,
yeah, I think like tracing the signal path might play a
yeah,
sample and see
I'll
where it
get a
ends
little
up.
snippet here, and we'll take it from there. But basically, it all kind of comes down to a binaural headphone mix, and that's what's really exciting about this, is that we can actually share this over Sessionwire, and we could collaborate together. Right now, Brendan and I could be experiencing what it's like to work in a 360-degree audio environment over headphones remotely, and I just think that's incredible. So
Yeah.
I've got my Sessionwire Send plugin after the head tracking control plugin, and so if I go and press play here on the scene, and I'm going to go back to the singer for a second here. Right now I've got, I'm just going to keep this window floated and go over to the Here 360 control. I'm going to move this around now. So I'm rotating the entire scene. So the singer's directly in the center, as you can see on this node, and so I've just centered this again, and I'm going to close this for now, and I'm going to grab this node, and if we were to pretend he was walking to the right side of the room, I can move him like that. Now he runs to the left. I can do some sort of Leslie-like panner. This might be more obvious if I just solo him for a second here, so I'm just going to do that. There's no elevation on this, it's just a mono source that we're dealing with. So But yeah, this is super powerful because basically if I go in here and I've already added in all these different parameters to automate, I could basically automate him. In this video, he's kind of more or less stuck in the center, but just imagine that he was wandering throughout the space here between interacting with the drummer and the horn section here. And if I drop this into, let's say, latch, and click, and let's say just kind of walk back towards the center. Now when I go back, what? There it is. Okay, so it's there. This is huge to me because traditionally, if you're doing sound design and you're trying to automate the motion of something, you kind of have to use the video player and you're jogging back and forth and you're kind of just guessing with a pan pot that's a lot more traditional. Like I'm just going to create a new audio track here and be like, okay, I can move this way and I can move this way.
Yeah.
This is fine on a mono source, but what happens when I move to a stereo source? And now I've got to have these two different nodes that I'm trying to move around like that. So Meridian is super handy in dealing with the like minute little changes, and it's very natural to deal with that. So that's kind of one of the bases of how to work in this regard. So the plugin itself starts on a mono track and has become an ambisonic track. So it's kind of repurposing the ambisonic bus to share all this information around, which is being decoded through Here 360's Earth plugin, which then gets routed to the Here 360 master, which is then going to these different print files that I've actually hidden there. Those are kind of irrelevant here, but the 360 control is where the magic of the binaural is happening, which is how someone can hear what we're doing in 360 over just a stereo pair of headphones. So this whole workflow really empowers people that don't have elaborate surround setups in their home or their studio environment to be able to start to think about sound in a 360-degree space and plot things there and be able to audition how it's going to sound. So even right now, I think, if you're on your phone and you listen to a Dolby Atmos track, that's going to be a binaural down mix of that, unless you have the ultra high-end headphones with the different drivers where they can kind of route all that stuff. Sorry, my brother's texting me here. That's like you're ultimately going to want to hear what the binaural mixdown version of this is I think that's a lot of what's going to happen in the future is what's the fold down? Does the fold down sound great? Because I know that it's going to play well over loudspeakers when there's discrete speaker sources with elevation, and something that I my whole family's going to go off on this now here. I feel like we might be in a bit of like the era akin to the Beatles, where they were like, there was an era where, the lore has it that they weren't even involved in the stereo mixes of a bunch of the early records that ended up being released in stereo, and that was kind of a gimmick at that point, and they were still focusing largely on the mono mix, and they'd leave the studio and then someone would go and just pan Ringo all the way to the left and Paul all the way to the right, and it was a bit of a nightmare. I think it wasn't until the White Album where they were like imagining their whole record in a stereo field, and it gets delivered that way, and they supervise that whole process. So I think right now we're in that same era for Atmos, where there's going to be some beautiful spaces that you can go and experience an Atmos mix in, but for the most part it's going to happen over headphones. And so that's why I'm kind of really focusing on the binaural down mix side of this thing here. So
right, yeah. And Chris just commented, what about Waves NX?
Yeah, I think it's a similar concept. I'm not quite familiar with it. I know at one point when I was looking at that, they had like some sort of like node that you could wear on headphones, and that was here. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for 2 seconds here, just to speak to the camera here.
Yeah, I'll switch my switch this thing here too.
Back. Yeah, there was. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but like that was kind of the idea behind it, is that you'd attach this sort of like beacon to your headphones, and when you moved your headphones, it would move the mix around a little bit. If that sounds right to you, then give us a thumbs up. But for me, that was just sort of like I kind of just want a different solution than that. I wanted to be able to steer things around, and I want to look at my screen and adjust something. I don't want to have to turn my head and look over here and then assume that I'm gonna hear things that way. So there's a bunch of tools out there in this space. I think Audio Ease has some solutions in this, and like I said earlier, I've been out of it for a little bit, but I think that it's fun that it's all coming back to the surface, and that Atmos is really kind of top of mind for a lot of new deliverables. So, I had this other thing over on the side of my session. Sorry, Brendan, I'm flipping back over to full screen.
No, it's all good. I'm going to take just 2 seconds to maybe fix a little audio thing that I'm having locally.
Sure.
Here. So if all the audio drops and everything, I'll give you the
Yeah.
signal. But 1 second here.
Yeah, I'm gonna just text my family and tell them that they're joining my live stream every 2 seconds here. I thought I had closed my messages here. I don't understand how it pops up. Yeah, let me check my. Yeah, you're on the stream side. You're still there. You're. On the Facebook live stream, I can see you. Yep. Helpful. We love meters. Helps us know what's going on. Borked is a great word. I'm surprised my dog hasn't gone into a fit at some point here. Usually there's something that triggers him once an hour and he barks his fool head off, so it might happen. Go into my bits, work on my stand-up. Well, let me just have a look at the questions here. Yeah. Okay, I'm just looking at my session here. Let's see. Well, if you're still with us, just be patient and know that the answer that Brendan is looking for is easily found on Wikipedia. No, I think. Wait, so no one's able to hear you, but they hear me? Oh, okay. So for anyone that might be wondering, Brendan's having some subtle difficulties with Streamlabs where it has frozen his audio bus. So he's just troubleshooting that quickly here, and I'm just gonna buy some time here. So you know what? I might as well just show some of this other stuff here and go through the routing. Um, so I believe, yeah, the drums are stereo. So yeah, that's an important part here. I might as well share my screen. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just close Sessionwire down there for a second. So you can see that the drums are at the back of the scene. They're stereo mixed. They've got a node on one side, one on the other side there. Wouldn't move the drum kit around because the drum kit just doesn't move around. That's not how it works. But the example I gave you of the singer walking around is how you would deal with that sort of automation there. I've just got the drums soloed right now in case you're wondering why. There we go. So yeah, nothing's happening on the elevation side for this. It's all largely just going through Earth 7.1. I'm kind of keen to show some of the newer stuff that they've been up to, and it's possible it's coming out under a different brand name. I can't remember what's going on. These are sort of like an advanced copy of these plugs here. So I think this might be a little more applicable to the Atmos realm of things. So I'm going to close this. There's no video relating to this. This is just a track that I have been working on for too many years, if you look at the name of it. But I'm going to play you the original here for a second. Sorry, I got to move my Sessionwire Send plugin back down to, let's create a stereo master. You're seeing my screen all right, Brendan? He's still borked. Okay, so I'm going to just drop the Sessionwire Send on the master because it's going to be really easy for me to just kind of show things that way in this case. So I really just going to take a moment here and talk about the Sessionwire Send plugin for a second and how pleased I am at how rigid it is. I throw this thing around in my session all the time. I move it from channel to channel, and you know, we obviously expect this from a lot of different plugins, but this is different. This is like leaving the application, and sometimes stuff gets really weird and tricky in that regard. So super pleased that I can just literally just grab it from one track and move it to another, and that it doesn't really miss a beat. We're still here connected, and yeah, simple routing management stuff. So up here I've got an original song that I've made that's kind of looks somewhat mastered, but what I'm gonna do is, whoa, that's way too big. Let's scroll down here. I'm just trying to focus on this here for a second. So I'm actually using this new shiny new plugin that I'm going to keep locked up here that is sort of an upmix plugin. So I've got a stereo track, and I'm going to get to a 7.1.2 mix, which this is where, you know, anyone that's watching can correct us and say whether this is legitimate Atmos or not. I don't believe it is. But it's pretty close, and what you could do with a 7.1.2 mix is deliver it to a studio that has the proper encoding tools for Atmos, and you'd be all that much closer to just saying, like, give me the deliverable of what I need to go to Apple Music with my Atmos mix. So it's all spatialized. It's got your 7-channel horizontal mix, which is basically reflected here in your left, right, center, LFE. I'm sorry, the LFE is the .1. Left, right, center, left side surround, right side surround, left surround, right surround. So that is your 7. Your .1's the center, and then your .2 are the elevation channels in this case. So the top side left, top side right. Pro Tools has a limitation of 7.1.2 right now in Pro Tools Ultimate, so that's why this is configured this way. I'm guessing when they upgrade things and open up more bus capabilities, that these guys will also do the same. So right now, this is a pretty high level spatial capabilities that gets you extremely close to being able to get to like kind of a pure Atmos mix in that regard. So I'm just going to hit play on this track so you can hear a bit of it. Okay. Let's let this pedal here for a few more seconds. Okay. So you get the idea. It's a lot of cool guitar stuff that goes left, right, for the most part. And I've just duplicated it down here, and I've done this so that we can kind of A/B back and forth between the original and this track that's being sent to the Subsistence plugin, which is actually a 7.1.2. Here, I'll show you how I got to there. So I'm going to create a 7.1.2 aux input. And you can see 7.1.2 channels there, but I open up Subsistence, and now it drops down to a stereo version of that, because that's a binaural mixdown of that whole path. So that's what I've got going on above here, and that's why it only shows up as 2. But there's actually, there's a lot more channels in between, if you will. So this is being routed to Subsistence, which is the name of the bus that I've given that with this plugin is on. Maybe that's confusing, but worth clarification. So now I'm going to move over to this one. It's kind of a bit foggy right now because I've been tweaking around with things, but I can raise the elevation. So if I solo the top, for anyone who's got headphones on right now, you should hear this coming up here. You can't see me because my camera's not on, but this should be top side left, and it should feel like it's kind of floating above your left ear at this point. There's the right side. Here's the left side. And just now I'm going to go back from the left side to the top side so you can kind of hear the differences there. The left surround. There's nothing panned to the left surround right now, so there's nothing there. Okay, I'm going to go back to the original for a second. This is quite a wide mix to begin with, so, and I've already, like I was mentioning, I've been futzing around with this. This workflow is using the built-in panner that's in Pro Tools itself. So the plugin isn't managing how I'm placing this. This workflow is just using the native panner, which is a brilliant idea. You know, having these other sort of, you know, the way I showed you with Meridian earlier, where there's like a little node that you're moving things around, and that's great too, but it's just one more process that maybe doesn't need to happen. So to be able to leverage the built-in panner of Pro Tools is pretty slick. And so, yeah, you can kind of play around with this until you find a setting where you're totally happy with how it's spreading around. So I'm just going to do some of that stuff here, and I might end up creating something awful, but just for the purposes of demoing it here. That's from the center. I'm going to just try and spread this out as much as possible. Okay, so you can see it's going across all the meters here. I'm going to dim it, so I can talk about this a little bit more.
Sure. I think my talkback's back up again too. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, I won't hammer on too much longer here.
Well, that's fine. People in the comments, you know, if you can hear me now, give a thumbs up. Huge struggle there for a second. So yeah, this is all real cool. Earlier we kind of went through Coldplay's Clocks was what we were listening to.
Which we can't play right now.
We can't play it, but we can do so. Oh, we got a bunch of thumbs up there. Yeah, great. They can hear. So yeah, we kind of you were putting it in a space, which was the strangest thing to hear this song, you know, now that the 2 mix sounds very flat and two-dimensional, but using this very kind of intuitive interface, like you said, the Pro Tools built-in spatializer interface, essentially, to control H360's algorithms it's incredible. So I wonder if we could kind of do what you did before with this visualizer. I guess this is where you're headed in Subsistence, to show where things are at.
Absolutely, yeah. So I basically just come up with I've just been twisting dials until I could see a lot of activity happening across all the different, these would be the representations of the physical speaker environment. So I think we've got to a spot here. I'm just going to A/B. It might be not in a more pleasing way. I really would encourage people to kind of play with this stuff on a level other than just trying to throw a flattened stereo mix into it. Obviously, you can do that, and that's really exciting too, because sometimes, I worked in the ad world for a while there. Sometimes you have deliverables to just add on 5.1, 7.1, and I'm sure Atmos is in the mix now too. So if that's part of your workflow, you might want to consider this, because it's a truthful and accurate way to get an existing mix that you're already happy with into all the multi-channel stuff. It's sort of like on the receiver where you'd hit like Hall, except it doesn't sound like, I don't know if we can swear on here, but I just won't. So those things tend to sound really rough, I find, and not truthful. And I really like what I'm hearing with Subsistence. It really stays faithful to, like, here's the song, but now I'm hearing this in a room. But I'm like, these are different size presets. I think room's not necessarily the right word. It's more about, like, well, it is. These are acoustic properties of reflections and stuff like that. I'm liking the proximity one for stereo mixes. So I'm just maybe I'll jog through and you can kind of hear the differences of those rooms for yourself. But so here's the original. This feels a bit darker to me right now. And it's probably because of some wacky settings that I have here.
It's darker, but it has a lot more depth.
Yeah.
It's
and
kind
I'm
of
guessing
enveloping more.
To take the darkness down, I can play with the LOV here. Sorry, let's move this. Yeah, this is panned pretty extreme here. Probably on, like, too wide.
Right.
This is starting to kind of do almost like a natural compression thing in the middle. So I'm going to go back over to the Tsunami interface again and just sort of solo some of the elevation aspects of it here. Left side, right side here. I'm going to put it in latch mode. So you can kind of just slowly add in these.
Oh, yeah.
Let's start with just the highs. Take the elevation and the hard left, hard right here.
Geez, having that center to just fill in the middle makes a world of difference.
I'm gonna just unlatch all these here.
Chris Nunn says this is even translating in earbuds.
It's what?
Chris Nunn says it's even translating in earbuds.
Nice.
That's
Yeah.
good.
I mean, we're both just wearing headphones. Like it shouldn't. You might even get a better response in earbuds because it's even closer to your eardrums and there's less bleed and things like that. I'm in open ear headphones right now and I can hear my computer fan and just the general atmosphere of the room and stuff like that, and mixing in with all this stuff. So this is awesome. No.
It is. Well, what the energy view in Tsunami there.
Yeah, let's go to that for a second.
Yeah.
So you can get a visual representation now of these, and you can even solo them here as well, right? So
Yeah.
see how I'm spreading this mix. I'm going to try and get back to the default state here of I believe That's it. Turn my LFE down. Must have some rear stuff. Forgive me. This is the 7.1.2 world is new to me, so I'm
I wonder if
kind
it's
of
that,
tinkering around here. But
is it
what's
that
that?
F/R, the front rear?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
There you go.
There.
Thank you.
Yep.
My eyes in the sky. Okay, so this is probably, there is definitely a difference between these two, and I prefer what's happening with the version that's going through the spatializer, to be honest. There's a room sound that I can't get from reverbs.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like there's some, it's like frequency specific stuff that spreads it around. It makes it seem like there's an actual band playing these sounds in a space versus me just throwing everything in
directly into your eardrums. Like
Yeah.
the original to me is like way too close to my head now.
Yeah.
Way
Exactly.
too inside, and that the spatializer just kind of puts it out here. It puts it on a soundstage in
Yeah.
front of your head.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to just try to fill this out again one more time, just for anyone that's just kind of tuning in now. And we'll just quickly kind of solo through the sides of it. And that's it. I mean, you've got this, they've really cleverly given you this slider to make use of the .2 to have, because in the Atmos configuration, you've got 4 speakers above you. You've got the front left, front right, rear left, rear right on
Hint
the
to
ceiling.
everybody for the skill testing question.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I lost your
and-
microphone, Ross, if you can hear me.
Give me one sec.
Oh, you're back now.
I'm back? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The it's probably my family texting me every 2 seconds right now. I'm on the group thread that's how it goes.
Those
They're
family
probably
group
watching
threads.
stream chirping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna play with the size knob and the height here in the panner, and we'll be able to see what this does a bit more. So I'm gonna go all the way up on the height. Now we're kind of in the ceiling only, which probably doesn't yield too much of effect. I do hear it, but it's a bit lost when it's all up on the ceiling, because now we're just kind of hearing like a. I'm just spreading it around a bit. Get some of the center back. And get some of the rear. Oh, that's the LFE that's direct on the back. So let me just pump that up a bit. Okay, so there's our original.
Oh, man.
I like this better. And so let's just use that as an example now, because I've got a mix I'm pretty happy with. And now I have a binaural spatialized mix that I'm pretty happy with, which means I'm pretty likely going to be able to just go 7.1.2 audio track. I'm going to take the input that I'm feeding into Subsistence. I'm going to record arm this and start printing it. And I could deliver, oh geez, I'm all the way back at where Busty and the bass was. Hold on a sec here. And I'm recording this now as a 7.1.2 mix. And if I had an Atmos setup, I would love to hear it over that right now, but I can't. But this is the closest I can get right now with my home studio configuration, and the fact that we might be able to work on things like this between each other from our spaces that maybe aren't configured this way is huge. I think that, looking at the 360 video example from earlier, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a sec so we can just chat here.
I'll pop out of this here too.
Unless if you had any questions specifically about this, this plugin's not yet on the market. It's coming very soon, and I'm sure we'll link to it on our site or something like that, and make sure that anyone that's interested, just reach out, and we'll make sure you can find it. So
yeah, no questions that I can see, but I think we were discussing earlier, this live stream coming to a close shortly. However, down the road, we're going to do more stuff like this. We discussed kind of diving a little bit further into the world of VR workflows in Pro Tools, and in terms of throwing audio back and forth and working in this realm, it won't be long before Sessionwire will have the capability of doing multi-channel streaming as well. So we will actually be able to stream discrete channels, 7.1.2 across the Sessionwire gap.
Huge.
To do this kind of work using your 360 plugins, which
are
incredible.
Many other, it's amazing to hear. People are already. I assume there's lots of solutions out there, and if I don't know if you saw my plugin list at one point, but I love them all, and I like to have them all, and they're all different, and I can't count the amount of reverbs that I have, and I wouldn't give any of them away. There's a time and place for everything. So super exciting to be thinking about multi-channel, obviously with Sessionwire, is just a mind-blowing proposition in so many ways, but to just literally, in my experience with something like 360 video and virtual reality, it's so hard to get client feedback on something. It's so hard because you gotta flatten that thing, and then you gotta send that over the internet to somebody else, and they gotta open it somehow and view that whole thing. And that process was like creating an app. And I don't know if anyone who's ever developed an app out there, it's a lot of work, and we would literally have to do that sometimes. At one point we had a staff member who was a 3D engine person who would literally just make Unity, create an application in Unity with our video and our mix in there, just to be able to pass that along to the end client so they could preview the thing and be like, oh, can you turn it down a little bit? Mm-hmm. And I wish that we had a solution like this where I could literally say, just put your headphones on and just connect with me for a second, and I can stream this to you, and we can have a real-time conversation about it. And we at one point we had a headphone splitter in the studio.
I lost your talk back again.
Oh,
why is that doing that?
That's probably my family. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
we're back.
Sorry, my computer's sweating. I might just close my Pro Tools here. I can hear my fan going like crazy. So
yeah, mine's going with the streaming and stuff too. But go on.
Where did that? Yeah, I mean, just the back and forth to try and get to a simple note like, can you turn this part up? Can you turn that down? Can you make this bass here? Can you make this more dramatic? Spin this way, do that. All of that back and forth, we just lost hours and hours and hours trying to wrap things up in a presentable way so that they could experience it. And I think where my mic kind of cut out is at one point, the best solution we had was get everybody in the room, absolutely everybody in the room. And we had a headphone going into a headphone amplifier so that we didn't just create ohmage loss every time we plugged in a new pair of headphones. We had 9 or 10 pairs of headphones coming off of a little headphone tap, and everyone would put that on, and no one would be able to talk to each other without taking their headphones off. This is such a beautiful and fluid thing that you and I are doing right now that I think it might have even changed the potential, the client uptake of some of these VR projects that we're doing, had it been this simple. Here, I'll just call you and I'll just play it for you and I'll just spin the video around and off we go. And that's a whole other side of things that we haven't really even gotten into, I don't think, on any of the streams. Correct me if I'm wrong, but post audio people are often working with video like 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 out of 100 even. But this screen share function of Sessionwire is so good because of this peer-to-peer connection, all this other incredible stuff happening behind the scenes, that like you're able to watch this video, you're able to see my screen correctly, and feel like you're there, and that's incredibly important. This, I imagine, between any like, I don't know, I can't wait. I just can't wait to connect with a sound designer I know and start working on picture together, and just being like, here, I'm just going to send you the video through my screen share. You know, maybe this isn't the most slick way, maybe this isn't frame accurate or something like that, but it's incredibly close, and it's better than the alternatives that I have seen in terms of accessibility that are there. You know,
Absolutely.
Zoom drops, if I may throw a little shade at Zoom for a second, it's like frame drops every 2 seconds when you're sharing video, and I think max is 1080p. So
Yeah.
I'm really impressed by the screen share side, and to all the post audio people out there, try it out and really see if you can kind of put it through the paces. But I've just been blown away at the performance of speed, sharing video back and forth and sync and all that stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, shout out to Luis Martinez, who's watching right now. He looks to be a post engineer, and he says the .1 is LFE, not center, in all caps, and that is correct. .1 is.
Who said it was center? Did I say that?
I'm not sure. I don't think we did.
Yeah. Sort 7 is the horizontal speaker array. The .1's the sub, and then in this case, the .2 is the ceiling, the elevation speakers. But yeah.
Yeah. Which brings me to the answer for the skill testing question for the session passes. The answer I was looking for was 7.1.4.
Yes.
Two elevation speakers, forward and rear. I think that is actually the minimum requirement to be an official Dolby Atmos studio.
Yeah.
Then they come and certify you for it. Chris Nunn says, what happens if you bus a channel to an elevation channel? We're gonna have to do another one of these. We have to.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole thing based on this, and you know, it'd be even better than me explaining this stuff is just getting some of the Here 360 guys on, and they can kind of show this way better than I can. I've been always on the content side of you know, like, just how do we, like, right down to the recording and all that stuff. So some of these tools are a bit new for me, but I would love to have those guys on and have them flex on their history and how some of this voodoo is working, because it's really remarkable what's going on underneath the hood, and it's just a billion different you know, like, if you've ever used a convolution reverb, you know, you've got an impulse response of a room. You can take a starter pistol and blast it, and you kind of get the decay of the room. And you know, I think they have a lot of that happening under the hood of this to give you a natural room in any which direction of which something's happening, versus this crude physics of like mathematical equations of, like, to make sound come from this place, you put this comb filter. And it's sort of what I was alluding to earlier with, like, music is you need that natural stuff. You can't have, like, the kick drum fall apart when you turn your head or
Yeah.
you rotate something. You know, you want it to sound like it does when you're in the concert, where it's like the kick slaps.
I keep losing your talk back for some reason. Oh, you're back now.
No.
Strange. This, yeah, we'll look into that. It might be my computer just sweating under the strain of Streamlabs and Pro Tools and watching the videos and the comments and stuff. So we'll chalk it up as that. I think that we're going to do another one of these videos. Responding to Chris and Luis here. Yes, Chris, learned something new. Yes, Chris, I'm going to send you 3 session passes anyways. Thanks for sticking around through the whole thing. And Luis, likewise, I'm going to send you some session passes, so I'll be in touch through Facebook Messenger shortly. for Dolby Studio spec, but it's all new. Yeah, 7.1.4. He said, let's go to the videotape. He wants to find out who said the .1 was center.
Oh,
I swear.
This whole thing is it's logged online too. Damn. And we're gonna find out. We're gonna get to the bottom of who this is. It's probably me. I'm.
It could have been. It could have been either of us. It's for sure a slip of the tongue because I swear we both knew this.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
Well, I mean, it's super exciting. I love doing these streams, and I hope other people are getting something out of them. You know, like I could go on for like I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface of one particular vertical of all of these different audio pipelines, and I'm just continually inspired by where this gets used and how it gets used. And so I'm excited that I got to chat about some of the kind of fringe use cases today, but I'm really curious to hear how other people are using it. And so, you know, we're going to keep doing these things and you know, keep coming back, and we appreciate your engagement.
Yes, we very much do appreciate it. I think one of the next videos I'd like us to do together is like a live ADR session.
Totally.
Yeah,
I would. Yeah,
you get to be the voice actor.
I think you might be better at it than me. We'll
see.
I've got this honky sinus thing.
I was just gonna say, I feel like that's how my voice sounds.
Maybe everyone feels that way.
Maybe.
So
we just have to like talk a little bit lower and slower.
Yeah.
We'll duke it out later, but exactly. I think that workflow does come up quite often, and it is quite interesting how Sessionwire can be used for that, because it's not a musical application where latency is paramount. You know, you're not trying to play in time with somebody or sing in time with somebody on the other end of the connection. So
yeah, I mean that guy. There's something on I believe it's already kind of pinned to our Facebook users group, but I highly recommend checking that out at some point. The DaVinci workflow is amazing because it's got the wipers in there. So for anyone who's not familiar, that's the term for sort of the countdown of your ADR scrub that comes through. So you get to see this little wiper when it gets to the end of the right side of the screen. I believe it's the right. Maybe, that's when you've got to deliver your line, and so there's this amazing kind of another. I don't call it an edge case at this point, because I think that, like you said, a lot of people are using it for that. That's incredible, and that the proof's in the pudding right there. That it's because it is quite a time sensitive thing. ADR, you know, it looks awful when it's wrong. It's really wrong, and you know, you gotta nail it, and it's a lot of work. You know, like the really skilled ADR actors, and I've worked with a bunch of them. Like they don't waste any time in the studio. They go in, they can hit their mouth movement exact, and it's an immense amount of the film production chain that is budgeted to do ADR. And most of what you see in a film has been re-recorded with those major celebrities. You know, even on your biggest budget films, that's happening. And actually, the bigger the budget, the more that's happening. So it's really, it's amazing that we can be a part of that too. And it's not just music all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Remote Foley at Paramount is another one that I want to get a little capture of that at. Louis says, please keep us posted with regards to the plugins. Yes, so the Hear 360 plugins, we'll keep you posted. That's we probably won't be sending out email blasts ourselves about them, but I'm sure you'll see
maybe
some announcements. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what we can do. Maybe put them up on the users group or something when they come out. So if you're not a part of the users group yet, definitely sign up there. You can ask questions, tell us what you're working on.
I'll try and get a discount specifically for the Facebook users group. So if you go in there, you know, I know those guys well enough. I'll try and get an exclusive discount for there. If you're interested in those plugins, look out for them there, and that's a good spot that we can maybe make that announcement at some point. Don't quote me on it. You know, I know this might have to take this down later, but
Louis is gonna go to the tapes later.
Yeah,
he's gonna double check on us just to make sure. We'll edit it out. I think this is a great place to wrap for today. we're nearing on 2 hours here, so it's 11 p.m. where you are, and it's 9 where I am, and I have to catch the tour bus in a couple hours here. So
Amazing. I can't believe it's 11 p.m. You just put that into perspective. I've been on Sessionwire, I think, today since like 9 a.m. and year to year, I'm still happy about all this stuff. So yeah,
it never gets old. It never gets old. You know, streaming audio across the world. It's something.
Yeah.
So I guess to wrap up, Luis and Chris, expect to hear from me in the next little bit. We'll get you a couple of session passes. There'll be 3 of them, and you can activate them whenever you want for 3 days each. Get all the Sessionwire features for sessions that you have. For everybody else watching, thanks for tuning in to another Sessionwire Live. I'll be doing one next week. I think it's next. Did I schedule it next week? I think I did. Check the Facebook group. The next one I'll be working in Windows if everything goes according to plan. So I'll be talking about working with Sessionwire and Windows. And I'll also be scheduling future live streams with guests of ours, guest users that we have that I'm sure you've heard of. I'm positive everybody's heard their names. We're really excited about having them on board and hearing their stories, and what stories they will be. Here.
Uh-oh. It's quitting time. All right.
See you on the next one.
Yeah,
Hang around
thanks.
for a second. I'm going to end the stream, and thanks again.
Yeah.